Okay, good morning. Today's daf is daf Yud of Sanhedrin. We are on the last line of daf Tet Amabet, last two words of the page. We have
We're gonna have
been
Rashi
dealing
or
with, yeah,
Rava?
oh, you better believe we're going to have Rashi. We're going to have what we've been discussing is the question of when are witnesses valid witnesses, and what is the punishment if people say testify to something that's false. In general, if two people testify that somebody did something, let's say they killed somebody, so then and then it turns out that two other witnesses say that those first witnesses were with us at the time, and so they couldn't have seen it. So then those two witnesses are called Adam Zomamin, and whatever they wanted to do to somebody else happens to them. So that means that if they wanted to cause somebody to be killed because he was a murderer, so then they're going to get killed. If they try to cause somebody to pay $1,000, so then they would have to pay $1,000. Now, in general, we've seen that if there's that if you have a situation where somebody is obligated to the death penalty and to pay money. So let's, for example, say that I, on Shabbos, light your wheat field on fire.
Yeah.
Well, for the violation of Shabbos, I would be, God forbid, subject to the death penalty. And so, as a result, because the lighting of the fire and the causing of the damage to your field are happening at the same moment, I would not be liable for the financial penalty. I would only be subject to the death penalty. However, we've seen that when there is a situation where money is to one person and the death penalty is because of the damage done to somebody else, we could end up with both, and that's what we're talking about right now, and we'll see that more in the moment. So let's take a look. And we're dealing with a situation also of when witnesses are valid in connection with testifying against oneself. If one were to say that that I did something wrong along with somebody else, would the accomplice be able to effectively be one of the witnesses against the other party who did something wrong? That's what we're going to be talking about now. So bottom line, Amar Rava. Rava says, and as we turn to Yud Amud Aleph, Ploni ba alishti. Somebody, this person, X, had relations with my wife. And now, of course, my wife, it was a consensual situation. So both parties would be subject potentially to the death penalty. Now, if there were two third-party witnesses, that would be the case. They would both be subject to the death penalty. But what about the adulterer, the male adulterer? Now, huva achar mitzarfin lahargo. So we say that the husband himself, along with one other person, can cause to kill the adulterer. Avalola harga, but he can't come to kill her because he's effectively related to her. He's his wife. She's his wife. So as a result, and take a look in Rashi, we'll go through the first few Rashis here. Ploni ba lishti abal lo laharga. So Lafisha Karavu Etzla, because he's related to her. Va'afal gafta mehimnin mininan le bahai sadusa legabi chavre. And even though he's believed for this testimony with respect to the third party adulterer, lo mehimininan le legabi ishto, we're not going to believe him with respect to the wife. Vahainu palgin and debura. And this is what we referred to as splitting the words. So we're going to believe him in one case with respect to one context and not in another. Because at the end of the day, he's testifying to one thing. Ulagabi hai mehemen, and with respect to this one, we believe him. V'lo mehemen lagabi hai, and we're not believing him with respect to the other one. So
Is a woman considered a karov? I mean, we talk about a mother, brother, father, sister.
But the wife, is she considered a karov
Yes, yes,
regarding
absolutely.
to,
That's what Rashi is telling us, 100% with
so
respect to
that's a
now.
halacha in
Yeah,
general?
yeah. Oh, yes, yes. Um, all right. So my Kamash Malan. So first of all, the Gemara wonders what is the point of this? Because after all, we saw yesterday that Dimafalginan Bedibura. Are you saying that this is what we learned? That we're learning here is that you can split the words. Hainu hach. That's the same point that Rava made yesterday. Remember, Rava said that if some, that Adam Karov Eitzel Atzmo, that a person is considered related to himself, and therefore, if uh, uh, he is not, therefore he's able to testify. Well, bottom line is really Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef noted that he could testify against the person who sodomized him, and so but he can't obviously testify against himself. His own testimony won't cause him to be subject to the death penalty. And so what's the new thing here? So Hainu Hach, it's exactly the same point that we saw above with respect to the case of sodomy. So Mao de Tema, what might I have thought? Adam Karav Eitzel Atzmo Amrinan, Eitzel Ishto Lo Amrinan. Maybe we would say, exactly as Ken was suggesting, that we would not consider that, although we would consider a person related to himself, we would not consider him related to his wife. So Kamash Malan, no, in fact, we considered him related to his wife. Let's take a look back in Rashi. Second Rashi
We
on
have
the top.
Ishtok Gufo. Where's the
Correct.
Ishtok Gufo?
So it's actually interesting that you raise that. We'll get to that in a moment. So Eitzel Ishto Lo Amrinan. So maybe we would say that we don't say it with respect to the wife. Adam Karov Le'inyan Palginan Dibura. That when we say that a person is related for splitting the words, we're not going to say it with respect to the wife. V'hoa Mehemen Ahu Dibura Lemikitle Lechavre Liketlu Nami Ledida, that maybe since we are going to believe him with respect to killing the third party, the adulterer, maybe we would believe him with respect to killing her. So Kamash Malan, we don't say that. Now, there are some in that I think when who was it? Um, that the note here points to the I think it's a Ravid cited by the Ran that says that actually what's going on here is not so simple as to say that maybe the husband is not considered the that the husband and the wife are not considered related, but in connection with that point of Ishto Kagufo, so we won't believe the husband at all, even for the Boel. That maybe the point here is to actually tell us that that the end result in the discussion here is that effectively it's like the second case of Rav Yosef, where the person is if the person had forced relations with my wife, so then I would be allowed to testify against the person. But if my wife engaged in the adulterous affair voluntarily, well then because of the concept of Ishto Kagufo, just like I'm not able to make myself a Russia, maybe I'm not able to make myself a Russia with respect to my wife. I'm not able to make my wife a Russia. And so you could even go further than what might be implied in the Gemara. And again, Rava there says we don't allow a person to make themselves a Russia. And so as a result, effectively, this would be a continuation of the debate between Rava and Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef would say we allow a person to make themselves a Russia, and therefore, because there's a relationship between the husband and the wife, we're not going to allow him to cause his wife to be killed as a result of the adultery, but we will allow him to testify about the adulterer, the male adulterer. And Rava says that actually no, we're not going to effectively believe him at all, because we're going to say, I'm sorry. So as a result, if it's voluntary, so then Rav Yosef would say that we are not going to believe this person at all, because he's making himself a Russia. Whereas, I'm sorry, we will believe him with respect to. Hold on just a second. Let me just make sure I get this right. Um, uh, yeah, so Rav Yosef would say that if it was involuntary, then the husband could testify against the adulterer, the male adulterer, and if it was voluntary, so then potentially he would not be able to testify against against anyone, because he would be considered a Russia because of Ishto Kagufo. And so as a result, that testimony would undermine itself. And Rava says, no, we're not going to let a person make himself a Russia. Therefore, we're going to not disqualify him. And therefore, he would be able to testify against the adulterer, even if he can't testify against his wife. Okay.
Why would he not be able to testify against anybody? Why did you say that?
Because because if we say Ishto Kagufo, right? So then, based on that concept of Ishto Kagufo, we would say that now that he's testifying that his wife is a Russia, that effectively undermines, because again, he and his wife are one being. So as a result, he effectively becomes a Russia also, and therefore he wouldn't be able to testify again to anybody, according to Rav Yosef. So the question is how do we understand this machlokas between Rav Yosef and Rava? One can interpret it that way. Again, one doesn't have to interpret it that way, but because you raised the concept of Ishta Gagufo, so I believe that's the way the Ravid, cited by the Ran, in the note, explains the Gemara.
But he could still testify against the boil, right?
No. The point is that not if it was a voluntary relationship. That's exactly what Rav Yosef would say. Now, again, I believe that we would paskin not even according to the Ravid's the understanding of the Gemara, we would still paskin almost certainly like Rava, and so as a result, the husband would be allowed to testify in that situation. So it's not again that, but the Rav Yosef position would seem to be that you would not. That's the way, again, based on the concept of Ishta Kagufo, that it seems that the Ravid understands our Gemara. But we don't have to go that far. We can understand it again, just like Rashi understands it, which is all that everybody agrees to this position. And the point is that one might have thought that Ishto Kaguf, that the concept of Adam Karav Eitzel Atzmo is only with respect to the person himself. But when it comes to his wife, we would not say that. And once we believe his statement with respect to a third party, we'll also believe his statement with respect to his wife. Okay? But the answer is Kamash Malan, not so. Rava tells us that, in fact, we're going to split the testimony, and we're going to believe it with respect to the third party, but not with respect to his wife. Okay, V'amar Rava. Now another situation. Now we get to the Edom Zomim question. Ploni ba'al na'ara ma'orasa. If two witnesses come and say that a certain person had relations with a na'ar ha'ma'orasa, a na'ara, somebody who's between the age of 12 and 12 and a half, and is engaged. She's done Erison, but not Nesuin. She's done Kedushin. So then, but they do not identify who the woman is. They just know that in fact had happened. V'huzmu, And then it turns out that they are made Edom Zomerman, because two other witnesses come and say that the first witnesses were with us at the time. Neheragin ve'ein mishalmin mammon. Then they're going to get killed, these two witnesses, but they're not going to have to pay money. Okay, and Rashi says, one, two, three, fourth line in the narrow lines of Rashi, ve'ein mishalmin mammon, tovas hanas ksubata. Because on some level, maybe they would need to pay the woman for the loss in finances that they would have called her. So my timer shahari lo his kirushma shame haisha ulaman mafsade. But they didn't identify who the woman is. So as a result, because they didn't identify who the woman is, we don't know who the woman is that would lose the money, and therefore we can't cause her to lose money. And so as a result, that's why we're going to say that, in fact, they only get the death penalty and they don't lose any money. Bito shall ploni, but if in fact they said it was this so-and-so's daughter, Vuhuzmu, and now again they become Edom Zomerman, Neheragin umishalmin mamon. They don't only just get killed, but they also have to pay money, because mamon lazeh unifashos lazeh. They pay money because of what they were trying to do to this one, and they give up their soul because of what they were doing to try to do to somebody else. Now, one might have thought, hey, aren't they all trying to kill the girl, and isn't she the one who gets the money? Well, Rashi helps us out here. Umishalmin mamon, shabo lahafsida, they have to pay the money. This is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9 lines down in the Rashi. Umishalmin mamon, in the narrow lines. Shabo lahafsida, ksubasa min ha'erisin, because they are now going to cause her to lose her ktuba. Umishalmin tobas hanas, ksuba kedin kol zome ksuba, and they need to pay the value of that ksuba, like any Edom Zomerman who caused a woman to lose her ksuba. V'lo pliga de Rava ad Rav Yosef, and there's no machlokas here between Rava and Rav Yosef. De Amar La'el Ede Habal Neheragin ve'ein mishalmin mamon, that when it comes to the situation where that the witnesses for the husband get killed and they don't pay any money, Dehasam Kavan de Nisas, because they got married, Hanach Tashlumin Diksuba Didabo. There, when they were trying to kill her and cause her to lose the ksuba, so that all that money goes to her, and so as a result, therefore, it's all one person who is suffering. Mihave v'kevan de ala mekatle lo mishalmila, because it's on her that these Edom Zomerman are being killed in that case, where again that case was where the husband says my wife was not a virgin, and brings witnesses to say that she had relations beforehand, and then it turns out those Edom or Edom Zomerman, even though if they were accurate Edom, they would have caused her to lose her ketubah. They only get killed. They don't also have to pay her ketubah. Mama, right? Lo mishalmi la mammon. They don't have to pay her money because all of the damage is happening to one person. Aval heicha delo nisas, but where she has not yet gotten married, hanach tashlumin de hazama de avninhu. Since she's only a nara, the money goes to her father. Dekol shevach neureha lavia, because while she's still a nara, she's not yet a bogeret. So as a result, she's not a full adult. All the money goes to her father. V'hava le mamun lezeh la'av v'nefashos lezeh v'shum debo el unara mikatle, because the daughter and the adulterer, they all they are going to get killed. So the victims essentially are different, and therefore we're going to say that it's all that you do have to pay the money, even though we generally say kimle b'derabba.
Why don't we say kimle b'derabba minay?
Again, because the victim on the death penalty are the people that you were going to try to kill, and somebody else, namely the father who you weren't trying to kill, you were taking money away from. And the principle that we're learning here is that when you try to take money away from one and kill somebody else, you are going to end up with the death penalty and have to pay money because it's two different people that you were damaging.
I'm
Okay,
a little bit puzzled. Okay, by the first case here, Ploni Ba'al Nara Murgasa, and we don't know who
right,
she is. So, where's the
right.
case then? If we don't,
No, because the case, remember, the case is against the man. The case is against the cat. That's the case. We're trying to kill the man.
right, I understand, but we don't even know who the girl is. And how do we
Correct.
know that? How do we know that's not fictitious? Someone comes to court and says, "This man raped a woman." Well, who's the woman? I mean,
Yeah,
where's the case?
well, if they can identify, presumably again, part of the Drisha and Chakira will be to explain, give qualities of the woman and her nature, but they don't necessarily need to know who she was. Maybe she ran away and they never saw her before, and so therefore they can give a sketch artist enough details to know who it
Uh-huh.
is, but they don't know the name of the person. So as a result, she is going to, just because she gets away doesn't mean that we don't kill the man who engaged in the relationship if we actually recognize the man.
And actually, someone saw the event.
Yes, somebody saw the event. Two people saw the event. Two men saw the event, and they came to us, and they are the ones who are testifying
Uh-huh.
that Ploni Baal Nara Morasa. They know that this woman was, 12, under 12 and a half, and was a Nara. Again, how that they know that also is kind of difficult to imagine. So it could be just a theoretical case, not a practical case. But that's the situation that we're talking about, where they
But
know that the girl happens to be of the right age, but they don't know, her identity. And
but
and then of
but
course
we,
the
but we
second case is where they do know her
but
identity.
we say these are 8 Zomimim. So another group come and say that these people couldn't have seen that because they were with us or they were in
Correct.
Chicago. So then
Correct.
ultimately, if the second group says that group one couldn't have seen whatever happened, how do we know whatever happened actually happened? Who are the
We
witnesses?
don't. We don't. Of course, if the first group becomes Adam Zomerman, then we're never going to. We won't kill the man or try to identify the woman to kill her. We're going to let obviously everybody go free except for the Adam Zomerman who will be killed in their stead.
So, no, but so that's the question I have. Why do we even? Oh, so we're killing them 8 Zoma, even though maybe this never happened.
Yeah, of course. And that's the whole point. Adam Zomerman get killed even though it never happens. That's exactly what that's exactly the situation for Adam Zomerman. And the point is that the Adam Zomerman, if in fact they identify the girl, because the money that it
Right.
would have
Okay. No,
gotten
I got
paid,
that. I got that.
okay, goes to the father. So
Right.
therefore, they're not only going to have to get killed, they're also going to have to pay up. Okay, the Amarava, Ploni Rava Hashor, if somebody, if witnesses testify that somebody had relations with an animal, Vahuzmu, and they again become Adam Zomerman, Neheragin, Ve'ain Mishalman Mamon. Then again, they get killed, but they don't have to pay money because we don't know which ox they sodomized. They don't specifically identify this particular ox. However, Shoro Shel Ploni, if they say that the person had relations with the animal and it was this particular animal, now the animal gets killed, and that's the money that animal belonged to somebody. V'huzmu, and now they become Adam Zoman, Neheragin. They get killed because they were going to try and kill the person. They would have caused the death of the person who had relations with the animal because that's a death penalty case. Umashalmin mamon, and they have to pay money to the owner of the animal that they said that the relationship had to happened with, because that animal would have been killed and been and you wouldn't be able to benefit at all from that animal. So as a result, that animal would have been a loss of money to the owner. So because again, mammon lazeh, benefashos lazeh. One second, hasu lama lewa hainu hach. Why are you telling me this rule, Rava? Isn't this the same rule that we just learned 2 seconds ago in connection with Na'ara Hamorasa, where if you don't identify the Na'ara Hamorasa, then you only kill the witnesses, the Eidim Zomin. But if you do identify the Na'ara Hamorasa, then you not only kill them, but they also have to pay the penalty because the money would go to a different person. Why isn't this the same case? So the Gemara says, Mishum de kaboy baya ilave. Because, they, Debai Rava, Ploni Rava Shori Mahu. So Rava taught this ruling because he wanted to ask a question regarding this rule about bestiality, about relations with an animal, because Rava asked, if somebody says that somebody had relations with my ox, Mahu, what would be the story? Mi amrinan Adam Karav Eitzel Atzmo, the Ain Adam Karav Eitzel Mamono. Do we say that a person has a connection with himself, but not his money, and therefore he's believed to testify about somebody having relations with his animal? Odilma Amrinan Adam Karav Eitzel Mamono. Or do we say that no, a person does have a relationship with their money? And if we take a look in the Rashi, middle of the narrow lines of Rashi, right opposite the Torah, or on the right-hand side, Mi Amrinan Adam Karav Eitzel Mamono, Upalginan Debura, and we'll divide the person's words. Lehemune Achavre, below Ashur. And we'll believe him with respect to the friend, meaning the third party, not a friend, actually, because that who will get killed. Odilma lo amrinan le'inyan palgi dibur, or maybe we won't divide the words. And Adam Karav Eitzel Mamono, and a person is considered related to his money. Avalpi de Balginan Leila El Eitzel Asmo, even though when it comes to himself, and the person says that I had voluntary relations with another man, so then we would say we don't
another man or another man's ox.
Well, the earlier case, the case that we learned at the end of the day yesterday, was a person saying, I had relations with another man voluntarily. And that was a situation where we say we don't believe him with respect to himself, but we'll believe him, according to Rav Yosef, with respect to the third party. Or no, I'm sorry. Rav Yosef says we don't, because he's made himself a Russia, we don't believe him at all. And according to Rava, no, we will believe him. We'll believe him with respect to the third party. We just won't believe him with respect to himself. We'll basically divide his words. So the question is do we say this when it comes to his ox? Do we say Palginan Dibura, or do we say no? We don't divide his words. Meaning that is he going to be believed only in regard to the other party and not in regard to his property? Or are we going to, because we're accepting his testimony about the third party, we're going to accept his testimony about his own property as well? So Basar Debaya Hadar Pashata. So after he asked the question, he was able to answer it. This is the second to last line before the two dots in the middle of the daf on Yudam and Aleph. Adam Karav Eitzel Atzmo ve'ein Adam Karav Eitzel Mamono. A person is considered related to himself, but not to his money, and therefore, since his testimony is accepted with respect to the third party, it's going to also be accepted with respect to his property. Okay. So now we're at the top two dots, Makos Bishlosha. We saw in our Mishnah that according to the Tanakama, a case of lashes is judged by 3 judges. And Rabbi Yishmael says, no, you need 23 judges. So we're going to see Rabbi Yishmael in a moment. But first, we're going to ask, how do you know? Minahani Mili, how do we know that you need 3 judges? So Amar Rav Huna, Amar Kra Ushvatum. The pasuk says, and they shall judge them. This is in a connection with a pasuk that deals with, if you take a look at Rashi, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 lines up, Ushvatum. Gabi Malkus Ksiv. This is a pasuk that's written in connection with lashes. So Ushvatum is plural. They shall judge. So the point is that there needs to be at least 2. The ain based in shakel, and we don't use an even number of judges. So mosifin aleyan od echad. So we'll add a third judge. Hare kan shlosha. So we have 3. One second, Elamiata v'hitzdiku shtayim v'hirshiu shtayim. Well, one second, there are other plural words in those psukim. Why don't we add two witnesses, two judges, excuse me, for each of those other words? And so hare kan shiva, we end up with three plural words. That's 3 times 2 is 3 times 2, Mark, is 6, exactly. And so, and 6 is not an even number. So we add 1 and we get to 7, exactly. So we hare kan sheva. Maybe we should have 7 judges. So ahumi baile kedulam. No, we're not. Those two extra words, those 2 words of hitzdiku and hirshiu, we need them for another purpose. The amar ula, because ula says the following: remez le'edim zomamin min haTorah minayin. How do I get a hint to the concept of edim zomamin from the Torah? Now, immediately the Gemara asks a very obvious question. Remez le'edim zomamin? What are you talking about? An allusion, a hint to Edim Zomamin in the Torah. V'haksiv kasher zamam. The Torah teaches us explicitly about the rule of Edim Zomamin, that specifically when 2 witnesses try to do something to somebody else and they turn out to be false witnesses, we end up doing to them whatever they wanted to do to somebody else. Ela remez le'edim zomamin shalokim minayim. Oh, no. What my question really is, what Ula's question really is how do I know that in certain circumstances, the Edim Zomamin will get Malchus? What are those circumstances? Take a look in Rashi. Remez le'edim zomamin. Now, again, 15 lines up at end of the line. Now 14 lines up in the narrow lines. What about the following situation? What if Stan and I, who are both, you're not a Cohen or a Levi, right? All right. What if we both testify that Joe Cohn is not and that's just not meant to refer to anybody in particular, but to be a generic name. Maybe I'll do David Cohn. David Cohn. The point is that he's a Cohen. And we say, you know what? We know that his father married somebody who was a divorcee. And as a result, he's no longer considered a Cohen. So, Kagon me'idin anu be'ish ploni shehu ben gerusha v'nimtzeu zomamin. And now what happens if Stan and I become Edim Zomamin? Well, in our case, neither of us is a Kohen, so it can't even possibly happen to us. But frankly, even if we were Kohanim, we would not be subject to the same penalty. We wouldn't lose our Kohen status as a result. V'hareihem Kohanim, Rashi continues, even if they were Kohanim, ein omrim yaseh zeh ben grusha tachtav. We won't make the 2 of us as if we were the sons of a divorcee. Ella supag esa arbayim minalan. So, but instead we're going to get lashes. And it's that question that Ula is asking. How do I know that the Edim Zomamin, in the situation where you can't give the usual punishment, that the punishment, namely that they were trying to apply to somebody else, how do I know that in that situation you get lashes? Diksiv v'hitzdiku es hatzadik v'hirshiu es harasha. You should exonerate the innocent and convict the one who's wicked. Mishum v'hitzdiku es hatzadik v'hirshiu es harasha v'haya im bin hakos harasha. 1 second. Because you're exonerating the innocent and convicting the wicked one, you're going to then give the wicked one lashes. The exoneration of the innocent has nothing to do with the lashes. So why is any exoneration mentioned in the pasuk? It would make sense to say v'hirshiu es harasha, v'haya im bin hakos harasha, meaning let's just focus on the wicked one. Ella, so what's the situation where there's both an exoneration and a conviction? Edim shershu es hatzadik v'asu adei achrine. So no, what happened is Edim Zomamin came and tried to make wicked somebody who was innocent. And then the Edim Zomamin came, the witnesses who come to make them the first witnesses Edim Zomamin, another pair of witnesses come forward. V'hitzdiku es hatzadik, they make righteous the righteous, Demi'ikara, who was like originally righteous. V'shavinu lahanak rashoim, and now he makes the 2 Edim Zomamin into the wicked ones. and therefore v'haya imbin hakos harasha, and it'll be in that situation that we will give lashes to the wicked one. And so that is what's needed for the words hitstiku v'hirshiyu, and therefore we can't use them to add two more witnesses and two more judges and two more judges as the Gemara originally proposed. The tepaglay me lo ta'aneh. Well, 1 second. Why not say the following? Why do the Edim Zomin who testify about something where they can't get the same penalty, why do they get lashes? Let them get lashes because of the prohibition of not bearing false witness. So the Gemara answers, Mishum tahavile lav she'ein bo maisa. This is a major concept in the Talmud, in the Gemara, that because this is something that is a prohibition that does not involve an action, v'chol lav she'ein bo maisa, ein lokan alav, any prohibition that one violates without doing any action. And the question and the point here is that apparently testifying using your voice and your words is not considered an action, and so therefore we're going to say that you aren't subject to lashes. So we need a pasuk to tell us specifically that you would be subject to lashes, and that's why we need Ula's teaching. And so therefore because we need Ula's teaching, again, those words are not available to add to the number of judges. Okay, well, now we go to Rabbi Yishmael's opinion. Mishum Rabbi Yishmael Amru, in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, it said, Be'esrim Mushlosha, you need 23 judges. My time at the Rabbi Yishmael. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Yishmael? So we have two approaches. Amra Baye, Asya Rasha Mechayve Misos. No, we have the concept, a Gzeira Shava of Russia. The word Russia is said with respect to somebody who gets lashes, and it's respect to somebody who gets the death penalty. So where do we have somebody who gets the death penalty? I'm sorry, lashes. Ksiv hachavahaya imbin hakos harasha. Here we had that if this person, we're going to give the lashes to the person who's determined to be wicked. Uksiv hasam asher hu rasha lamut, that who's an evil, the one who's wicked is going to die. So again, that's a death penalty case. That the first one is from Dvarim Kaf Hey Pasuk Bet, and the second one is from Bamidbar Lamed Hey Pasuk Lamed Aleph. Malahalan be'esrim u'shlosha. So Avkan be'esrim u'shlosha. So Abaye says that it's a Gzeira Shava. Rava Amar Rava says no. I have never heard of that Gzeira Shava, but rather Malkos b'makom Misa Omedes. Now, no. Lashes constitute a form of death penalty. What does that mean? A little complicated. Let's take a look at Rashi. Third of the wide lines, Malchus b'makom misa omedes, the kaven de avar al azharas boro, since one violated a warning of their creator, roli hulamus, they deserve to die. Umisa zu knas alav, and this death constitutes a penalty. Hakosov knas alav hakosov, that this is the penalty that the pasuk has on him. V'hareyehu ka'achas min hamisos, and this penalty is just like one of the death penalties. V'kiheke deskila b'fnei atzma, just as stoning is one penalty, is one death penalty. Usreifa b'fnei atzma, and burning somebody with hot lead down their throat is another penalty. V'harag b'fnei atzma, and slaughtering, choking, cutting off their head is his own thing. Havinami malchus ke'achaz min hamisos. So too, malchus is one of the death penalties, and so one of the penalties that could result in death. So 1 second, in that case, and Tosfos adds the following. Now Tosfos offers two other approaches, but in the end, he actually likes Rashi's approach the best, which is a cool Tosfos to see, because it's always nice to see him support Rashi. So Malchus tachas miso medes yesh mefarshim mishum de b'nei Noach azharatan zu he misatan. That when it comes to non-Jews, that we say that the warning causes them to be the death, meaning that a non-Jew who violates any of the Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach is subject to the death penalty. V'nitanas liyisrael malchus al hazharato tachas misa, and this malchus is replacing that misa, the b'nei Noach, that you would get if the person wasn't Jewish. So on that level, that's what we mean by a malchus b'makom misa omedus, that the malchus, the lashes, come in place of the death penalty that would ordinarily happen if the person wasn't Jewish.
You back in the
So,
Gemara? I
what?
lost that. Are you back in the Gemara? I
No,
lost
I'm reading the Tosos. The
Oh,
last
it's
Tosos on the
okay.
dot. Last Tosos on the dot. So, Yesh Lomer, another approach to explain what it means by Malchus Tachas Miso Medis, Mishum Dezimnin Mesim Al Yedei Malchus, because sometimes the person will die as a result of getting the lashes. Keditznan, Be'elu Hein HaGolan, Omeis Zet Tachas Yado, Upater, that if the person who's getting lashes ends up dying, the person who's giving the lashes is exempt. The kasha, but both of these explanations are difficult. Kasha l'shnei perushim halalu demai parach ihachi umdana lamali, because we're about to ask, why do we estimate how many lashes a person is able to get?
Well, you want to stop before they die? Isn't that the point?
Well, that's going to be our answer. But the point is, if in fact we say Malchus b'makom misa omedes, why do we care about stopping before they die? Maybe we should just give 39 lashes no matter what. And therefore, Tosfos says Rashi's explanation is the main one. And again, Rashi's explanation is that Malchus essentially constitutes a form of death penalty. So again, Amar Rav Acha, back in the Gemara, Amar Rav Acha, it's the last two words on the seventh to last line of the Gemara. Amar Rav Acha Brei de Rava, L'Ravashi. So Rav Acha asked Ravashi, Ihachi umdana lamali, why do I bother to do some kind of estimation as to how many the person will be able to survive, how many lashes the person will be able to survive? L'machye the imeis lemus. Let's just do the flogging, and then if he dies, he dies. Amar lei. So Rav Ashi explained, Amar kra v'nikla achicha le'inecha. Your brother shall be demeaned before your eyes. Ki machis agaba dechaye machis. The point is that when you hit the guy, you have to hit somebody who's alive. If we end up hitting somebody and they die, that won't work. Elaha de Tanya, but second, that doesn't quite answer the question, because what about the following brisa? Amdu lekabel esrim. If we estimate that the person can get 20 lashes without dying, and the 21st lash will cause him to die, ein makinoto ela makos haruuyos lehishtalesh. We're only supposed to lash him that a number that is a multiple of 3. The kamahain. So how many lashes does he get? Tamne Srei. He gets 18 lashes. As we turn to Yud Amabed. So, L'mache Esrim Mechada. Well, 1 second. Why not lash him 21 times? He's going to be able to survive the 20 lashes. And let's say he dies on the 21st lash. If he dies on that last one, Limus, let him die. After all, Dahakimachis Agaba Dechaya Kamachis. When you hit him, he was still alive, right? He survived the first 20. And so let's allow the 21st. Meaning we should always be able to hit, if it's a multiple of 3 and he can take 3x plus 2, we should give him 3x plus 3. So Amar le, Amar kra, v'nikla achicha le'inecha. Again, because your brother should be demeaned in your eyes, achar shilaka achicha be'ina. That after you've lashed him, you need to have that he's still your brother. Vilenka. And if in fact he were to die on the last lash, well, then you would no longer have a brother because he would be dead. So as a result, that's why we say that in fact according to Rava, you need to have. That is why we have to have. Allow him to that is why we even though Malchus b'makom misa omedes, even though the lashes are in place of the death penalty, we're going to need to do an estimation and only give him a sound amount of lashes that he can withstand. And so again, those are the two approaches as to why Rabbi Yishmael says we need 23 judges. Okay, so the next piece in our Mishnah was about
what happens if the estimate is wrong?
if
You
the estimate's
estimate,
wrong,
then what happens?
we're going to learn
Is
that,
the
of course, in
punisher, is
Maseches
the
Makos.
executor, is the executor of the lashes chayav then in some
No.
manner?
No, we already saw that in Rashi. Rashi specifically noted that we're not going to make him liable, but not only, but we're going to see, obviously, that's going to be dealt with a lot more in Maseches Makos. But you're absolutely right to ask it, and it's a good question, and but again, no is the answer. You are not the person who gives the lashes as required by court is not going to be subject to the penalty. So, all right, Ibor HaChodesh Bishlosha. We said that we add a day to the month, right? Every Jewish calendar month has either 29 or 30 days. So Rosh Chodesh is always on the 30th day or the 31st day. And we just said, it seemed in the simple read of our Mishnah, that we said that when you add a day to the month and you end up saying that the month is going to have 30 days instead of just 29, that requires 3 judges. So the Gemara explains, Chishuv Loktani. It did not talk about evaluating the calculations. You don't need 3 judges to do the mathematics and figure out exactly when we expect a new month. Kiddush Loktani. And in addition, we did not specifically reference sanctification of the Chodesh. Ela Ibor, meaning we didn't say that you had to sanctify the new month with a certain number of judges. Rather, we said it was adding a day. So lo liktisha umimela la'abed. But 1 second, if you don't make Rosh Chodesh on day 30, we know that Rosh Chodesh will be on day 31. So isn't that going to be automatic? Why do we need a court to add day 30 to the previous month? Once we know that day 30 isn't the new month, we know that day 31 will be. So we're going to have 4 approaches. Amar Abaye, Tnei Kiddush HaChodesh. No, we should reread it, and it's really Kiddush HaChodesh. That when the sanctification of the new month, that always has to happen with 3. Tanya Nami Haki, and we have a brisa that teaches this. Kiddush HaChodesh v'ibur Hashana b'shlosha Divrei Rebbe Meir. Rebbe Meir says that you always need 3 judges to sanctify the new month. Amarava v'ha ibur Ketani. 1 second. I don't understand, Abaye, how you could say that. The Mishnah says Ibor. You're putting in, as Rashi explains here, I'll do it outside. Rashi notes, it's not like you're adding a word or subtracting a word. You're changing the word. So it refers to a new month. Ella Amar Rava. So Rava says, no. Kiddush b'yom Ibor b'shlosha. When you do the new month on day 30, then you need to have 3 judges. But achar ibur leka kiddush. But if they do it on day 31, meaning if the witnesses don't come on day 30, so then you don't need 3 judges. It happens automatically. Umani, and who is this? Rabbi Lazar b'Rebbe Yitzadok. The Tanya Rabbi Lazar b'Rebbe Yitzadok. Omer imlo nira bismano. If you don't see the moon at its right time, meaning
You're
on
muted
day
now. We don't hear you.
I'm not muted.
You push the mute button.
No, I'm not muted. Moshe, can you hear me?
There's no sound.
I hear you fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ken, but it seems to be on your computer. I'll put a note in the chat. Okay. Okay. So Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Yitzhak, says, "Imlo nira bismano." If you don't see the moon at its right time, ein mekadshino so shekvar kidshua b'shamayim. Meaning, if we don't see that the new moon is coming, so that we have to do the new moon, the Rosh Chodesh, on day 30, meaning the prior month is going to have only 29 days. Well, then we all know that the next day is going to be Rosh Chodesh. That day 31 will be Rosh Chodesh, and the prior month will have 30 days, and it's already sanctified from heaven, so we don't need to bother with the sanctification. So that's approach number 2 to understanding our Mishnah. Approach number 3, Rav Nachman Amar Kiddush Achar Ibur B'Shlosha. No, the sanctification after it's achar ibor b'shlosha, that we actually need, it's only if Rosh Chodesh is on day 31, do we need to have 3 judges. B'yom ibor leker chodesh. But if you do it on day 30, you don't need to have any kind of special sanctification. You don't need the 3 judges. Umani, and whose opinion is that? Plimo that's the Plimo. Tanya, Plimo Omer, Bismano, if you do it at the 30-day, so we don't have to do any kind of sanctification of Rosh Chodesh. Shelo Bismano, but when you do Rosh Chodesh on day 31, Mikachino, so then we need to have a special sanctification. Final approach, Rav Ashi Amar, La'olam Chishuv Katani. Really, the Mishnah is not talking about is talking about the calculations that you do. Umay ibor, chishuv de ibor. That when you figure out whether or not a month it needs to have an extra day, that calculation needs to be done in a sitting of 3 judges. V'aidi de kavoi lemisne ibor shana. And since we're going to talk about having a leap month for a leap year. So therefore, we also use the word ibor when it came to the calculation of whether or not you need an extra day in a month. Chishuv chodesh in kiddush chodesh lo. So in second, are you telling me that it's that there's only that needed to 3 judges in order to do the calculations, but not the sanctification? Money, who is that? Rabbi Eliezer, that's Rabbi Eliezer. The Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer, Omer, Bain Bismano, Bain Shalo Bismano, Amikajino. So doesn't make a difference whether it's on time or not on time. You don't need 3 judges in order to sanctify the Rosh Chodesh. Ne'amar, v'kidashtem es shenasa chamishim. Right, you're going to sanctify the 50th year. Shanim atam mekadesh, v'i atam mekadesh chodashim. You have to sanctify years. You don't need to sanctify months. All right, well, I'd hope to get a little bit further, but we'll stop here and we'll pick up from there, God willing, tomorrow.
Well, what's the concept of we did the chishuv. We know 29:30. What is the meaning of kidashtem, kiddush hachodesh?
So that is the concept of the judges saying that the Makudesh, or something along those lines, of saying that in fact detailing and specifying that this is going to be Rosh Chodesh, that their action actually constitutes the sanctification of the day of Rosh Chodesh, that without their saying anything, nothing happens, but only because they said it, that's why we're going to sanctify Rosh Chodesh. Whereas the other opinion says, no, you don't need to actually have that kind of sanctification. And those are the different approaches that we had. Some said you only need sanctification for Abaye says you need sanctification no matter which day. Rava said that you need sanctification only if it's the first day. Rav Nachman said it's only if it's the second day. And Rav Ashi says essentially that you don't need sanctification at all. So we ended up with 4 different opinions. It's just like a box that you could create as to which days need to be sanctified. All right, and we'll pick up from Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, God willing, tomorrow.
Well, when is the learning tomorrow?
Presumably it'll be Motzi Shabbos. Keep an eye on your WhatsApp for the specific times.
But he told us that he's not going to be able to give the dot because he's in Israel.
So
he said it might be a recording. He doesn't know when, how.
Okay, so you have to keep an eye out on your WhatsApp because I don't know the answer to that question.
I see.
Have a great day. Have a good Shabbos.